Okay, we're here with Whitney Marston Pierce. Welcome to the show. I think I've got a number of ways I want to take this, but I want to focus on sort of you're an innovator and you're a collaborator, and the collaboration piece is something that we've kind of been challenged with, sort of with COVID. And I think you could, kind of lend some good, you're, staying on top of your game from a collaboration perspective and getting the best kind of projects out there. But that means nothing to anyone without maybe a little bit of context. So if you would like, I'd give you the floor. I'd love to hear a little bit about your kind of background and your story.
Totally. I'm Whitney Marston Pierce. I have been in marketing for almost 20 years. Don't look too closely. And started accidentally, and it just kept happening over and over again. So here we are 20 years later. The last, I'd say 10 years, I've spent mostly in the startup space. So helping companies become better companies and helping ideas become companies. That's like the main thing I do. I say make ideas into viable, vibrant businesses. In the middle, and still I have a branding agency, and I think a lot of everything you do with a brand these days stems from the brand itself. I have been a consulting CMO for a lot of the last decade as well. So a lot of just consulting, collaborating, as you were saying, and what have you. So I've worked at a ton of companies because I'm in and out pretty quick, generally speaking. Well, pretty quick, meaning, less than a year. And so I've been lucky enough to work in a ton of industries, which I think is really effective in terms of what I do, because I can see the trends across industries versus being, knee deep or neck deep in one where it's, hard to see the forest for the trees. So yeah, that's what I do. Stuff.
Sweet.
Things.
How'd you get into that? I mean, obviously you don't just start your career and become like, I'm fractional CMO for hire. How did you kind of build to the sort of platform that you're at today?
Yeah, definitely. So to go back to 20 years ago when I accidentally started in marketing, it was because people were asking for my opinion, and eventually I started asking for money for my opinion. That has just continued to happen. So what I ended up doing was kind of building my business to match reality. There's this game I used to play. I invented it sitting on the beach in Zanzibar. I know that's an annoying sentence, but it's true. And Red Wine came on, and I was like, oh, dude, I hope that this is all UB40. And it was the first track of the best of UB40. It sounded like, at least. So that is when I started the game, Wish for What's Already Happening.
Yeah.
A great game. You win every time. I'll get back to it, but it's kind of my philosophy and work in general. Ended up doing that for like being asked for my opinion, asking for money or equity or both for it. And in the startup world, and it made a ton of sense that I could come in, give a bunch of opinions, and then someone else would be bound to be asking. And so I could take on more than one at a time. That's it. It was pretty organic is, I guess, the short answer to that. But it's not dissimilar to my entire work theory, which is test, analyze, iterate. That is when I had my branding agency, it was a little more intense than it is these days. I was watching people have a brand and not know what to do with it. And so it was, I tested this branding agency, and yes, it was great to build brands, but was it more effective to put this brand into the world, to employ and deploy it, which is another annoying sentence, but it's totally true. That's how that happened.
That's great. Yeah. So I'm not even going to bring it full circle yet. I'll wait for a few more questions. What kind of brands, people, companies, industries? How do you kind of segment? I know my knowledge of you is that you're in New York, but I don't know if you've also been in LA, obviously Zanzibar, other, exotic locations, but like, is it geographic focus because there's certain types of businesses there, or tell me kind of how that, what that makeup is like. I didn't, I'm used to kind of hearing like, well, I focus on kind of B2B SaaS in the, whatever fintech vertical, and that's my specialty. I don't think that's the case with you, but you do have some sort of commonalities, I would think, maybe. But what kind of partners are best when you're out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think these days my specialty, if one can say it, would be direct consumer, CPG, more or less. I find it really satisfying. So that's really been more or less what I've been working in most recently. To give you the least defined answer of all time, it kind of goes without, no, it does not go without saying. Sorry, I'm turning off my dings. It's been very organic in the way that people are they are referred to me, and if I like them, I will work with them, because after having spent enough time doing this, there are patterns that go, that are cross industry, cross whatever. I mean, granted, CPG and B2B is a very different space, but at the same time, you're processing similar data and, analyzing it to decide on outcomes. And if your practice is data-based, you can move that all over the place. So the answer is whoever knocks on my door that I like.
Yeah. Well, they got to go through that. I mean, we always talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but the brain is like one of the more powerful computers out there. So they go through an advanced algorithm to get from door knock into the inner circle. One thing that kind of, I think, seems to be important is, and I don't know if you would call it like business model innovation, but when did you start taking equity, and has that been a good idea, or has it just been sort of happenstance, or it hasn't paid off? I mean, when did you decide that, and kind of how have those results fared, and what does that sort of mean as you kind of look forward and continue to learn, analyze, iterate?
Yeah, nice. It's interesting because equity doesn't mean anything until it does. And it depends on what kind of equity, what types of shares, class A, B, C, D, whatever number, letter, how you get paid out, if you get paid out, if it is just an acquisition or an exit or an IPO that you get paid at. A lot of people see equity as this carrot, which in a lot of ways it is. If you have like quarterly dividends, that makes sense. But in, different shares, you don't get jack until the company gets acquired or they IPO. So it's been varying. That's the word I was looking for. It has, varied. I do have one company that I'm very excited because it looks like they will eventually IPO. Not quite a unicorn, but the Flex company I was at very early on. I'd say a proto founder, maybe. And so, they're doing very well and just growing and growing and growing. So I'm really excited for them. Otherwise, 90% of startups fail. And even if I'm there and I can do a really good job, a lot of them still fail. And it's interesting. It's a conversation I've been having a lot recently, is that, not to quote a book, well, there's the founder's dilemma behind me, but it is interesting to watch the patterns that happen in founders as well. People kind of getting in their own way. That's something I've been thinking about a lot, working with a executive coach friend of mine, having those chats. That's on the brain.
Is the Flex company, would that be like kind of your first big outcome, or have you had also varied sets of outcomes? Like, I know the outcomes can vary, but have you personally sort of experienced that? Like, some turn into cash flow, some turn into like little pops, others turn into a big pop. How's that kind of play out?
Yeah, totally. There's, I think Flex would be the biggest pop, just because, an IPOs are a massive deal. There's definitely been, like, side chicks, if you will.
No, just kidding. Obviously, come on, man.
Hey, we're all dudes here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some things that'll, trickle in, or when I'm not paying attention, it's like, residuals in a way sometimes. I used to be a musician. Oh, used to. That's such a sad statement.
Oh.
But yeah, it's like, someone plays your song on Spotify a couple years later. You're like, oh, cool, a slice of a penny. So yeah, it's been super varied. But now, these days, I'm looking, when I get into a project, to have a very healthy chunk of equity if I'm going to be involved, because I need to have to care.
Yep.
But it's too long.
You don't want to be giving zero flex. Haha, you give lots of flex. I feel like, man, I give so many flex. Okay, bye. Just keep going with that. Okay, so like what I think, so actually now maybe full circle, and I kind of was talking about how does collaboration work these days with COVID. Not that that's like, this isn't like a COVID themed podcast or anything, but I took a few leaps there, which I know that, to find business and find relationships and to be, well, I'll put some words in your mouth and you kind of comment and correct, to really make an impact on a brand and be their lead marketing person, and to get paid for that, and to even get equity, which you want to pay off. You need to know the brand and know the team on some level deeply. And just know, build your own story around it, build its, whether it's has an existing kind of persona or aura, or you're kind of defining it. And to be willing to enter into those relationships, you really have to find these partners. They knock on your door, but then they go through that mental algorithm of, okay, I would work with them or not. And so that all comes from like collaborations, right? It's in your network. These are all sort of collaborative relationships. There's another tangent. I mean, it's sort of like, you kind of have this career and business and portfolio approach, which is interesting. And I like that. I do like this kind of, how do we level ourselves up? It's not always just from like kind of horizontaling out and like, oh, I'm going to repeat myself and build this into a repeatable process. I think there's kind of an art and beauty into it not being repeatable. But that's like kind of constraining, but you're obviously doing really well at that. So there's kind of that there. But anyways, collaborating, finding collaborators and doing the collaboration, has that been sort of a challenge? And how do you see that kind of playing out over the next, year plus? So still in pandemic, but then and beyond.
Yeah, it's interesting. Previous to pandemic times, as you were mentioning, like things were geographically centric, geocentric, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Based on people I knew and people they knew, and a lot of businesses in New York. And then I could go into the offices and sit down with the founder or the CEO and have a conversation about what they needed and their vision and this, that, and the other. That is not a thing anymore. But I have actually had almost more opportunity since then, in the COVID era, because you can connect with anyone at any time, and we're all used to sitting on Zoom at this point. And it's been very interesting because I actually have a geographically centric set of clients right now, and they're in the Detroit area. But it's because I was at one company, and then I'll tell you this. Most important thing is being honest. This is how I've gotten the vast majority of my clients during this time. Like, if you cannot or do not want to work with a person, don't. In the beginning of the Detroit thing, as you know, I have an investment property in Detroit, met a business person there who wanted me to help with their business, like I do. That didn't go particularly well. Which really should have used my powers of people reading on that one. Didn't do it. I was too excited about the product and didn't think about the people as much as I should have. But that led me to pretty much everyone else I'm working with at this point. So a consultant came on, and I was like, hey, consultant, just all I can do is be honest, like, don't put your fingerprints on this train wreck. And, it's kind of continued that way. Like, you just have to be honest and genuine and sincere. And I've found that to be the most, like, actually monetarily rewarding practice that has, I would say, really coalesced over this like COVID era, because I don't know these people. I haven't met most of them. And so you have to find this new connection, and that I'm finding that for me is to be brutally honest.
Yep. So, one question is, do you think of yourself as an investor, or how do you categorize, Whitney Marston Pierce?
That's a really good question. That's existential, man. How do I categorize myself, man? I think I am, yeah, definitely looking at myself more in those terms these days. I think in early days, sometimes I would take equity because it was all that people were offering. Like, these companies didn't have money, but I thought they were cool and interesting. And I was young and didn't know the whole deal. But now I'm like, yeah, yeah, I would consider myself or a burgeoning investor, let's say.
Yeah. And I'm like kind of like asking around this because I don't even have the perfect words, but how does, speak to how one makes a career out of being sort of I'm like lone wolf or like an independent, contributor. Like, you haven't picked one thing to just be like, I'm going super deep on this one product or opportunity, but you have gone deep on my skills to come in and make value, where there was less value before, and to kind of connect products into the marketplace. But speak to how you've, been so successful making a career out of being like a kind of an army of one, and a specialist in your field.
Well, that is all very nice of you to say. um I do think it actually has a lot to do with my upbringing. There are a couple of things in my family that were just normal that aren't normal in a lot of families. So in my family, the way to success, or the way you're seen as being successful, there's two things. One is you have to own property by 30. Two is, generally speaking, you run your own business. And that has been that's what I've grown up with. That's what I've known as truth. My family is full of Swiss Army knives. And I was also raised by a single mother, which requires you to be a Swiss Army knife, which I think is how I just understood that I had to gather as many skills as possible, because I watched my mother do it and be really successful at raising me. But I think it was my normal. So I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, is the kind of like wish for what's already happening. I had this disposition, as it were. I needed to figure out how to make that a thing. Which is funny, because that's what I do with businesses. Like, I have this idea, how do we do a thing around it? And I think I might be having an epiphany with your existential question from earlier. Is I just did my own thing to my own thing.
Yep. No, that's great. My kind of goal with this podcast is, find these people that are super interesting, that I enjoy talking to.
Whoops,
in many cases.
Wrong person.
Yeah, no, but or would. Mostly it's like people I know and have communicated with, and then it's just like putting those conversations on the internet because people can benefit from it. So I'm sort of a little bit fishing, but I know you're, but there's something about like, I want to work on projects. I want to collaborate. The kind of freedom and flexibility that you've developed in your kind of life and career to be able to like pick projects, get paid in a variety of different ways, because you're thinking about not just short term, but medium and long term. And then the fact that you can have success in that way. I think there's a future of kind of work in that thread, or that vein of thinking. Like, it's there's a future of sort of how kind of ideas come to life. We have a shared sort of kind of passion and bond over like just getting good ideas to the market and making sure they get there. We don't know, we don't know everyone's buying behavior and if everything will be successful, but it's like great to see something like actually make it off the, sketchboard and into the world. But we're kind of kindred spirits and we've got lots of projects going on, and just sort of how to, navigate that and where to find value and how that's fulfilling to ourselves individually. So I think, I'm trying to tug on those strings because I like that too. And I don't know enough about I couldn't, you're answering these questions better than I could. If someone asked me that, I'd be like,
if I told you were on a podcast,
yeah,
you might figure it out. Cause this is, as I was mentioning, it's coming out.
No, it's great. What about your own products? I mean, like, how do you, what are you like, do you invent stuff yourself, or do you really find like you like grabbing on the best ideas and your strong suit is getting them and getting product market fit and getting them to the market? I guess what's the kind of balance between, because obviously you have this mechanism in your mind and in your experience for how to make people buy stuff. So are you ever like, I should just sell them my own stuff? Or are you always just kind of using that with things that already have that are already progressed a little bit?
That's really interesting you should ask, because that is a shift that's happening right now for me. To go back a little bit,
sure.
You were talking about, kind of the future of work and what it looks like to, have your hands in a couple different places and a couple different pots, if you will. And this is something we've discussed at length previously is, having those levels and layers, a diversified portfolio, if you will. And we've both really been paying attention to real estate because people always need a place to live, right? And now more so than ever. So that's actually really, this kind of societal shift has really been informing what I'm doing. And that leads into your next question. So previously I have found a lot of I think we're similar in the way that we're like business adrenaline junkies.
Good one.
It's also kind of annoying. That actually, I would love a mega cut of me saying that's annoying to finish the podcast.
That's right.
So,
happen.
That's annoying. No, that's the trailer. So business adrenaline junkies, we like to have our, business all over the place, really. And so this societal shift has, that I've been just data, not even mining, just like, I love analytics. I love seeing trends. And right now is like the mecca of trends because everything's changing and in a big way. People aren't saying like the future is different. The future is just 5 to 10 years closer than we were expecting. And that's all happened within the space of years. So that all being said, I am really leaning on doing my own stuff right now. For the first time in a very long time, if not ever. Here in New York City out there, nice. And it feels really cool. I think, the last big project that I kind of headed that I was making my own ideas happen was the agency. And I've had so much fun, like teasing out other people's issues and, growing their ideas and their businesses. But I think it's kind of led me back to, the beginning where I'm like, okay, so I've gathered these skill sets and I want to start putting out my own things rather than ideas into the world because I've watched it be successful for other people. And something I've said many times is, and not actually acted on, was you can't live someone else's dream. So right now I'm starting 3 of my dreams, which is pretty cool. And they all have to do with I don't know. I was going to do something dramatic. It's pointless. Just with the shift. So like talking about like, moving from being in an office to being at home more often. And that will, as we well know, will continue to happen outside of COVID. that now Salesforce and Spotify have now offered flexible work locations. So, all at this point, all of the largest tech companies are allowing people to work from home. Those large companies are headquarters in big, expensive cities. If you don't have to pay a ton of money to go to work, to live near your place of work, what does that look like?
Yep.
It's so exciting. So yeah, doing some home-based stuff, home decor, kind of nesty business, not nest the company, like nesting. And then also getting back into healthcare, working with some supplements, and some new kind of fun ideas. I'm thinking about things I want because now I am the ideal consumer. This is what I know because I tell people, I'm like, okay, I'm a yuppie. I am, 30 to 45, double income, no kids, this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh, I'm the person with the money to spend. What do I want? Because I can go find me real easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting because I have felt the same way on a bunch of projects, and to varying success. It's not always a home run, but you do always kind of hear the anecdote of like, be your own customer, scratch your own itch. And like that yields this like voila. And I think sometimes we all like look too hard for that. Like, what's my problem? What's my problem? Where's my problems? And then other times it's just obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you're kind of more in the latter area here where you're like, wow, this is obvious. And no one knows your customer persona like you, because you are you. So, this is going to be a fun adventure. So how do you get the confidence and or foundation or stability or anything to switch more, if not most, from what you're saying, of your attention to your own internal projects? You've been your own boss, you're working for yourself, and now you're kind of like working for yourself, like squared, because it's, you got your own thing, but it's to work on this new thing. For someone who's had a career of, charging money and fees, and now being like, ooh, I have to be switching gears to like product revenue and inventory turn, or whatever the case may be for the products. How does that feel, and what were kind of the mental, or what are you dealing with making that shift?
At first it was kind of terrifying, but also not. Like, I've worked really hard for a long time to have a bit of a cushion to do something like this. But at the same time, like, that working really hard has meant like I worked with a ton of idiots. And that built up enough. And I was like, I don't want to work with idiots. I will do my own thing.
I'm thinking about my own timeline, knowing you. I was like, "Oh shit! Now which bucket am I in?" Because I thought, I
like,
was
which
in
side are
like the
you?
good collaborator, like made it through that algorithm, but maybe I made it into the cushion algorithm. I don't know. Just kidding. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a matter of, finding your joy. If I was searching for what problem I needed to solve, I wouldn't be doing this. But because I was like, yo, you're having this issue, it's what you like to do. So in terms of the home goods stuff, I am basically sourcing from artisans around the world and curating a collection, for people to put in their homes. What do I love? Traveling. What can't I do? Travel. What do I love? Shopping. What does that cost money? So I can shop for other people, because all the way back to the top, people pay for my opinion, which is crazy to me still. But in any case, they can, and my taste is, renowned. It's not, but, enough
Right.
so that people have given me money for it for over a decade. Why not just do the thing I love and the thing that people don't have that skill set for right now? So yeah, I mean, if it wasn't as obvious, it wouldn't be happening, but it feels right. The other project is, it's really simple. I've been drinking too much coffee in quarantine because it tastes good and it doesn't have calories. And then I've become, a heart attack having psychopath. So I wanted a solution for that as I drank my coffee. And that's
should have at
all
least
it
had a
was.
logo on there that could have been an advertisement, like, hold on,
Drop.
product placement. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's smart. It's draaps.com.
Okay.
Sign up. We are just getting through our second round of testing. And what that is, it's a combination of, nootropics and vitamins and cool stuff that makes the energy from the coffee calm and longer lasting energy, and then like chills you out in like you don't feel like your heart's gonna fall out of your chest. So it's really fun. So it takes away the jitters and it gives you more energy, and that's totally a thing you can do with vitamins and nootropics and stuff. And so yeah, really excited about drops. That's like one of my favorite things. So it was one of those moments where it was an aha, and so that makes it less scary because I'm like, if I want it, I assume other people want it. My husband wants it.
Yep.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. And I'll come right back to that, but how did you find drops? How did you come across them? I mean, you didn't like start with the problem and start titrating formulas, in your lab, like, oh, I'm going to make a chemical and then like turn that chemical into a dropper. And like, maybe you did, but otherwise, if not, how did you kind of stumble into that relationship and that collaboration that's led into this, business opportunity for you?
Yeah, it's really simple. I have a client that is a supplement company, and I was talking with one of the owners, and I was like, "Your supplements work, which is weird and freaks me out, but good on you. So this stuff actually works. Could we make this?" And he's like, "Totally. Let's make it." I was like, "Yeah, let's go make it."
Okay.
So he's not a doctor, but he's worked in the supplement world enough to see, how things work with each other. And he has a manufacturer he works with. And so all of us together say, what do we want out of this? How do we, mathematically make it possible? What ingredients are water soluble? Like, it's really interesting when you get into there, and it's like, and how many milligrams of vitamin B can you put in, or vitamin B6, let's say. Oh, it's 2,000 times what the body needs, but people get excited about this vitamin. So then you go through the process of kind of marketing within the ingredients, which is really interesting. Like, if you see ashwagandha in anything that's pill, like regular pill size, it's not enough to do anything, but it's a cool hip thing. If your dose is 4 pills, maybe. So yeah, like learning all these things, like what is the hip filler and like this, that, and the other. So that's been very fun. But yeah, it was a wish for what's already happening.
There you go. No, yeah, way to bring it all together. Although I didn't, yeah, got it. So, but you found,
I did.
you had the and this isn't, and I know kind of firsthand, and I'm similar too, is like, you share all your ideas, you're socializing ideas, and you're getting, one, market feedback, and two, you're putting out, feelers for potential collaborators. You put it out there. It's wish for what's already happening, but also you have an approach that's like, I don't know, it's something like, if you just kind of put it out, it's nothing. If you dream it, it will become true, or like,
Build it and they will
I don't
come.
know. Yeah. It's like, if you just talk about it, it might happen. If you never bring it up, or if you just thought that the whole time, that person wasn't going to go out of their way to be like, hey, do you want to like collaborate on this project where you have equity and we start a business together based on my sort of platform of manufacturing and like ingredients, and yours in marketing and consumer goods. Like, you had to sort of say that you kind of are putting yourself out there, and I guess taking risks of someone being like, no, that's dumb, or like stealing your idea. Has any of what kind of like, how do you handle rejection, or what's a case of that gone wrong, if any? God, I would never say anything goes wrong, because I would always say, well, on the average, I'm way better off. So I think you're optimistic too, but maybe anything where you're like, get over yourself, get over your fears, because here's the worst that's happened to me? Or
Mhm.
how would you weigh in on that?
Yeah. So a lot of that again stems from childhood, and I've actually been working on a book, and I feel like I've just been like interrogating myself a lot. But
Nice.
a thing my mom always said was, "What's the worst they can say?" And the answer is no. Um, the other thing is, I have grown a wild sense of confidence. I haven't always had it, but I know I'm good at my job. So if people don't want to work with me, that's on them. Um, it's a similar sense of confidence I feel with, just being a human. Like, I don't want to make you like, I'm not going to make you like me. If you don't already like me, we're good. We never need to be friends. So it's the same with work. And so I feel like, I don't know, I just throw things out because one, I can always play it off as a joke. Everything's a joke, right?
Nice. Just kidding.
Yep. Ow. And then I can punch my desk accidentally. I don't have anger issues. Um, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like what do you have to lose? You have everything to gain, right? Um, go have fun. Like also, again, throw your ideas out to people you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel like I had something else to say, but I think that covered all of it, which was, there's kind of a, maybe a little bit of an experience share there. I don't know if that's something that, others are kind of like struggling with, of how do you even get that sort of thing off the ground. And it's not, you don't have to do it all, right? You sort of are out there asking, yeah, all the worst people could say is no. So you're asking for partnership, asking for kind of help, but also just, yeah, throwing out ideas and seeing what sticks. And you're getting feedback, from the market as you do it too. Like, yeah, like it, don't like it, whatever. I wanted to go. So you've made some product income like now or in recent memory?
What do you mean by product?
Have you've gotten checks from like some of like the product sales through these or one of these past ventures?
Mhm.
Or are these initial? Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, I'm saying that because I'm like, I don't think I've ever made a check off of like a SaaS or product or thing, and that's really one of my goals. Is
It's
to
really
create that.
interesting because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
go.
like
Yeah.
in the tech world, often the goal is scale, 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 become acquired, right? And a lot of these direct consumer companies, they just want they don't want to be the biggest brand in the world. They just want to be able to live. So if you're getting your dividends quarterly, like all of a sudden 10% means something. Because everyone's getting their salary, the company's running, and if there's a profit, then you get a check.
Yep.
Because unlike the tech world, like this is this isn't trying to be WeWork,
Yep.
the goal is to be profitable, not to scale. In a lot of the tech world, that is completely the opposite. So every dollar is going back in. What is it? Uber's still not profitable.
Who knows?
I'm pretty sure that is the case. I believe they're losing like $1 billion a year. No, that's
Oh,
too
that's it.
much.
No, I was gonna
I
say
don't know.
per quarter probably. Well, we'll look it up. I'll
But
have my
nonetheless,
editor fact check that. Just kidding. That doesn't happen.
we can pretend.
That's right. No, but you're right.
Yeah. So like in like a CPG world, it's a different goal. So you can actually make money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that means you've not only taken the step, but you've gotten you've started to see it really materialize. And I don't know. I think for me, there's just like a threshold. Like, I've had other ventures and other adventures that have yielded, yeah, partnership stuff, investment, equity, and some have led to, you know, payoffs that were good, but to actually, in terms of like, yeah, taking the approach that you've taken and having that turn into like like either non-service revenue or non-consulting revenue or non sort of like one-time event revenue is something I'm interested in too, and I have not like crossed that threshold. I feel like that'll just be a great day, that dollar. That's kind of where I'm at. And it
Is
sounds like
that the
you're a
one you're
little
going to
bit
frame?
farther. in the journey. Yeah. Like, oh, I got that dollar. I made that sale. Yay. And then do you see that as like the future of how you'll manage kind of your career and your portfolios? It'll always be things. Is that like kind of
I hope
going to
so.
become a requirement? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, well, yes, because I think one of my goals, and I've been saying it a lot, and as different opportunities arise, it's hard to keep my eye on that prize sometimes. I would
Yep.
love one job, just one.
Yep. What would that
Um,
one job be? I mean, is
but
it
yeah, it depends, right? So is that one job managing
all your other 10 jobs?
exactly?
Yeah.
Or does, drops take the fuck off? And I don't know if we're cursing here, but we are now.
We
Um,
are. We are now.
and that's my plan. But okay, it's a single product company. Does the product line expand? Does it get acquired? Blah, 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 blah. Um, but do I do I stop taking clients to spend all my time there? Or do I hire someone to do what I do there to do
Yeah.
other? So like I think I can't make that decision until it starts to happen. But if I know myself, I will never have one.
Yeah.
The job will be managing.
Yeah.
But I really like that idea. Also, it is important to know that I punched my desk so hard that I'm bleeding.
Damn. There you go. It's a tiny, tiny baby drop of blood though, but it's real, verified. So what are your goals like for the year? So I mean, I'm hearing kind of you've, innovated, you're an innovator already, and you've driven success into kind of helping companies go to market, grow. You've then innovated on your own sort of business models, taking like a portfolio approach and really looking for like deeper collaborations, which does seem like a natural evolution when you've achieved success. You don't want to necessarily just work at a bigger company, and you don't necessarily want to like fan out to all these employees. So you want to get more out of each engagement. And now that's sort of shifted to like, it's not less about more out of each engagement, more out of each like investment, or co-investment. So that's like really awesome and huge. And the way you've gotten there is sort of like collaborations, and it's about relationships and asking, the worst people could say is no. And also putting your ideas out there to be shamed, laughed at, stolen, or et cetera, because who gives a fuck? Like, people, if they like it, they'll pick up on it, and you'll find, people that are worth working with. What does success look like for you this year, and beyond? Like, how do you kind of define that?
Right now, success for me looks like launching these companies, bringing them to market, actually doing it because, okay, I'm an expert at planning how companies could go to market, but I want to
Yeah.
see them there. Marston Collection, the home goods, artisanal, uncommon luxury that we're talking about there, that's going to take a minute. That's, product acquisition, packaging acquisition, customer acquisition. That's not a quick one. Drops, on the other hand, is okay. Let's get 1,000 bottles of it and go. Uh, so I think that will be faster, but getting both of these companies to market by the end of the year is ideal. With drops, I would like for that to be self-sustaining at least by the end of the year, because I do think I can get it to market before Q3. And if I've learned how to bootstrap. I don't want to make that company a startup where we get $2 million in ad revenue or ad spend. That doesn't seem necessary with what I've been doing, because I've been in this space where I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I want drops to be self-sustaining, and I want Marston Collection to be to market. And I would like to take a nap at some point. I would love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No shit. And then,
Well, and then the other thing that we're both interested in talking about and looking at business models for is, I bought the cabin upstate, and so I have 5 acres there. I want to finish the cabin, but then what is the next step there?
yep, we'll be building a modular home community. Spoiler alert. Another one of my projects, right? I gotta get prototype is in production. No, prototype is in design phase, but then we'll move into, building version 1.0.
So excited.
And how are you looking at like continue, right? Because it's a portfolio approach, right? So, how are you getting more collaborators into your web? How are you, putting more out there and growing your pipeline of potential partnerships? What's your kind of approach and strategy there?
Just being really good at my job. Uh, honestly, it's interesting because that's what I do for people, right? Like I create their pipeline, their flywheel, et cetera, et cetera. All of my business has been word of mouth. Um, I've never really advertised. I've never advertised. Um, so yeah, that is like the least answer. I know. But I think it's also being social and being honest and being trustworthy and being a good person and not over promising. Like not over promising makes you good at your job. If you are honest with people and you're like, yeah, throw $3,000 at ads, you might get a single sale, but then we can figure out what we're doing wrong. They will hire you again, as opposed to throw $3,000 at ads and we're going to get this, that, and that, and that. And don't overpromise because it's not realistic and it harms the longevity of the relationship always. So, yeah, I think, that's another thing that is really important is that, is not overpromising. It's like an extension of being brutally honest. But,
yep. So your plan is kind of like, good.
Go.
I was going to say, so yeah, I mean, you're continuing to have people come, be attracted to you and your magnet because you're, doing a good job and being, authentic and transparent and all those things that go into doing a good job. Because it's like bad to do the other way, but you've started to get way more intentional about grooming those for, kind of that investment portfolio opportunity approach. And where does that lead? What does like 10 years from now look like? You'll be, 37, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Haha. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Right. Anyway, yeah, I don't, anyway, so pretend 10 years from now it doesn't suck in terms of like that number, but what does that look like for the Whitney Marston Pierce brand? I mean, not the brand, you're in branding, so I don't mean the brand, but for
the portfolio, right?
Yeah, the portfolio. Yes.
Ideally, okay, so there's a couple things. Ideally, a lot of the companies I've worked with previously that we've been talking about that I have equity and whatnot in, and dividends and payouts and what have you. Those, some I have faith in, a lot I don't. But what I do have faith in is the projects I'm creating to continue to do that. So I guess I'm not kidding when I say take a nap. I want to create these companies, get them, sustainable and profitable and moving forward and making the world better in some way or another. So like with Marston Collection, helping artisans get their work to a larger audience and, creating jobs in underrepresented communities and just being able to do some good and make some money. More is better than less. And then the same with drops. It's, help people feel better. And that makes me feel better. And then, if it's profitable and I have a kid running it, because it's and I say kid because I'm extremely old at this point, in 10 years.
Sorry, in 10 years.
Exactly. Then that portfolio effect, and then, multiple investment properties, and maybe those are long-term rentals, and maybe those are short-term rentals, and maybe there's maybe we make a pod hotel in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know. I want to keep. I want the projects I'm doing now to live on because obviously I'm more invested in them than client work. But then at the same time, I want to be able to have the bandwidth to explore new ideas always. So I guess that's almost an answer.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I like explore new ideas always, and I think, that's a good one. Put that for your book.
ENIA, ENIA.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was perfect because I think it's not, it is about kind of the journey, and it's hard to know where we'll be in 10 years. And it's sort of like tough, especially when you're kind of where you are, which is right in a sweet spot, which is I've got kind of this experience. You're not ready to just be like full on, like invest into other people. You still are like very much a doer and a maker of these ideas, and because you're your own customer, right? So once you're like no longer anyone's customer, it's like, well, I gotta kind of like, I have to trust that other people know what's on trend, and that just doesn't last like forever. But I mean, it can last a long, long time. And so it's kind of I was almost gonna say make hay while the sun shines, but like it's not. That's sort of more like, unique to each person, right? So when you feel like you're in that zone, kind of make the most of it and be thoughtful and intentional with kind of the projects you pick. But I don't know. This is such a non-obvious kind of conversation, but it's so like interesting and important because it's hard to, a lot of people don't even like call this out or name it, right? It's not, they're not like, oh, I don't know, what is it? Like, what are you? You're like, yeah, like I'm an investor, I'm a freelancer, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a consultant, I'm a designer from a supplement seller, like I'm a, like whatever. It's so kind of I think for a lot of people, like that's just confusing, but
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, for me too, I think it's like, what are you doing? Like, well, I've got one project. What's that project? Well, it's to run all my projects. It's like, well, damn. And then like one of those projects that I'm running actually is to look at like 10 other projects. So like that one's a big one. Okay. Like this one's a little one. And I don't know if that's good, but there's definitely something there. And I think a lot of people are kind of exploring how they view their sort of life and career and their portfolio of and body of work, and kind of finding the work that matters in a way that sort of, yeah, I mean, we have to pay bills, but we gotta, like, we want more, right? We want to care. And so that kind of gets us back to like, yeah, finding these partnerships and being our own client, eating our own dog food, and like making stuff that we like. And so I'm totally, you know, vibing with what you've got going on. And
You
to me, it's
aligned.
obvious. Yeah, it's like, it's so obvious. Like, wow, you've got your shit together. And like these will all work, of course, because I'm also like, entrepreneur, optimist person. So it's like, yeah, like, dude, these are all going to be a hit. And then next year you have three more ideas, and each year a sequence of businesses, and eventually you're just like this big kind of, conglomeration of, one person show just running like 10 different successful kind of businesses. And then our modular home business will be also in that category of
Mm-hmm.
success. So anyways, I just, that's why I suck at this interviewing, because I end up talking, but I get kind of excited about what I'm trying to pull at threads that I think others will kind of get something out of.
Thousand
And
percent.
you've got a lot to like, be obviously proud of for your own accomplishments, but like, you're a boss, so you know that. But like for others to kind of be like, huh, and can they stitch that together? And what is innovation like? And then also, yeah, like what does kind of innovation look like in collaboration? And it's like takes on many different forms, and you've kind of showcased a few of what that looks like. So anyway, why don't you just wrap us up with something? I need to find a standardized like closing, like name me 5 things. I'm just kidding. But yeah, what's your, I guess, let's wrap
Categorize
it up.
closing. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
This
Oh
is
yes, please. Thank you.
the what advice would you give someone?
Okay.
Um,
What advice would you give someone?
what business advice do you give someone? This and this is actually something I do very regularly. Is like, and it goes all the way back around to wish for what's already happening. Um, what do you want to do? Doesn't matter. What are you good at? What do you like doing? How can you combine those things to make money?
Damn, that's perfect. Okay, so I will now officially adopt that as a closer. Like, what business advice would you give someone? Because every show has some sort of like kind of seamless and like predictable close. Mine always just are kind of like, okay, well, time,
Well,
bam,
I'm bored,
off.
so shut it down.
Yeah, like, oh shit, I just ran way over. I've got another meeting for like my job. But no, that's great. And like, you said, I actually almost pointed that out. Is like, and almost in a way that's like, wish for what's already here. But it's also not just like combining your passion with your talent. Cause like, then like you never work a day in your life. Like you were like, obviously like I saved up too. Like, so I intentionally grinded it out, banked money and put the money away.
Work-life
so
balance. I'm
could
thinking not.
do that. Yeah, right. So I mean, like, actually, I read this other guy's, like, someone forwarded me some email from the guy. It was like, I don't know if his newsletter was called The Algebra of Wealth, or that's just the title of this newsletter. But this guy that started like Red Envelope, which sort of like preceded Netflix, kind of, or whatever. But it was like whatever. And he was like, doing what you love is kind of like a bullshit myth. You kind of have to like be calculated. You have to like find the right job, find the right career, find the right path, understand which waves to ride. And then, like, when you find the right ones, then you can jump on it. But everything else, like, you've got to have like plan B's out the ass. Like, you have to have a job, you have to save money, you have to like be valuable in the marketplace. Cause it's not just like, I love this, I'm doing it, and like, ergo I'm successful. Like, that is not
marry rich if that's your plan.
Yeah. Like, you're just missing.
That needs to be part
steps
of your plan.
Yeah. So,
that's my other life advice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Get a trust fund or marry rich if you don't have 17 backup plans.
Get a trust. Yeah. So get a trust fund. Be like, Mom, Dad, like, you haven't really delivered yet. So are you about to like buy some lotto tickets and like maybe win one of these days and like put that in there? So anyways, no, I think, you didn't like kind of call that out, but obviously you also, like, for a long time honed your craft and grinded it out, and like, built your business and built up some sort of either like, monetary reserves or just general, like, resiliency, so that when you were making these jumps, you could do it. You weren't like day one, like, oh, I love this, I'm just doing it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I'm fucking evicted and homeless. Like, but my love and my passion is my job. So like, that was, I don't know, I was adding some of that like practicality to it. It's easier said than done. It's possible, but you got to have sort of like multi-plans. So anyways, one day I'm going to get a purpose to this whole podcast, and it's going to be all self-help, and I'll get all the clicks and the views. But for now, it's just interesting conversations, and people can find experiences and get what they want out of each one. And I think you've definitely been a rock star. So thank you for kind of doing this with me.
Oh my gosh, it's an absolute pleasure. And let's do it again anytime. Launch some companies real quick and get back to you.
Yes. So yeah, we'll do a follow-up episode after some companies have launched. Maybe they're just yours, or maybe there'll be a collaboration. And we should just record the collaboration. So step one, we met through another collaborative friend. We collaborated on something that no deals came together, but we were working, helping a company out. And then we've stayed in touch, and we've made it our purpose to sort of like stay in touch and like kind of touch base every couple of weeks. And then sometimes every few months, sometimes it's 6 months. And then
sometimes every week.
Yeah, sometimes every week. So kind of like ebb and flow with where like the energy is. And we've got some definitely shared interests. And so we're sort of pursuing those, and maybe something comes of it. So I'd love it if something does come of that. And then we can kind of like do a making of like the startup podcasting and podcasting about podcasting.
Yeah,
super meta as fuck. That's MAF, math.
And the SLBF. Let's build, fam. It's actually going to be the name of the podcast about podcasts about modular homes.
Oh, let's build, fam. Oh man, damn. That's why you are awesome at your job, because that was like 1,000. Like, that was amazing. Okay, I'm writing that down. Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
Well, yeah, we're doing it.
Tight.